Beck program. Good news. Good news. Come here, Aaron. Come here. Good news. This is the last show Aaron's doing with me. No, that's actually the really sad news. The IEA is releasing emergency oil. That is the good news. You're having problems at the gas pump? Don't worry. The whole world is riding to your rescue. They're getting involved. They're going to put 60 million barrels of oil right there. Of course, you're responsible. The United States is 60 million barrels. That's for the whole world. We're responsible for half of that. But it's going to, relieve the pressure elsewhere. Look, here's the thing we all have to understand. Nobody is going to do a Marshall Plan for the United States. I'm sick and tired of the redistribution of wealth. No one's going to send us one Hershey candy bar. Not one. We need to rebuild ourselves. We will stand alone. But the good news is, you've never heard this phrase, oh, thank goodness the French are here. It's always, thank goodness the Americans are here. The Americans are already here. We just have to remember who we are. We warned you about the Mideast. We told you that it would bring on an oil crisis. Well, here it is. And yet, everybody then and everybody now telling you it's fine, it's fine, it's fine. We'll just take more oil out of our own strategic reserves. That doesn't sound like a good idea. Because isn't that strategic reserve, isn't that in case of war and we have a real... war will never happen. Anyway, Saudi Arabia is also increasing their foothold now in the nuclear energy department. You can't build a nuke plant. No, not here. No. Germany can't. The West can't. But the nut jobs in the Middle East, we're all for building nuclear power plants. Let them have, they've got a right, Are we out of our mind? Why is Saudi Arabia building nuclear energy? Because they announced today that they're starting to run a little low on oil. Don't worry about it. Nothing better than the news that Saudi Arabia might be running a little low on oil and starting a nuke program. Don't worry about it. No. We are the people that are going to solve the problems that others are creating. We are the responsible ones for our own solutions. Now, the next one I want to show you here is a clip I wish was CGI. I wish George Lucas was out there going, watch, I'm going to make Ben Bernanke say crazy stuff. No, it's not CGI. It's not made up. It's Ben Bernanke.
We don't have a precise read on why this slower pace of growth is persisting. One way to think about it is that maybe some of the headwinds that have been concerning us, some of these headwinds may be stronger or more persistent than we thought.
Yeah, whatever. Did I just hear him say maybe? We don't have any idea. Maybe. United States economy, pretty big engine, pretty important engine for the whole world, not just you. The whole world, right? It's like a Ferrari. Got to tune that baby up. You know what? It's maybe even more important than a Ferrari, because that's just some fat cat. This is like some really crappy commuter airline that you're sitting on, but that engine is really important to everybody on board the plane, and you're strapped in the seat, you got your whole family, you're like, okay, kids are ready to go. And then you look out the window, and you see a mechanic with a screwdriver and a flashlight. And he's looking inside the engine, and you hear him say, I really don't know what's wrong with the engine, but I'm just going to fix it some more. Stop fixing the jet. Ben, if you don't know what's wrong with the economy and you're like, I don't really know. Maybe it's some headwinds or something. Step away from the engine, Ben. Step away from the economy. Well, hello, America. Glad you're here. The wee little Aaron is going on vacation, and tomorrow we have a show, got a studio audience. It's going to be great, but nope, she's on vacation. And then next week I have 4 more shows left. She's on vacation. Don't let the door hit you in the back end on the way out, Aaron. Spring is. I'm going to miss you, Aaron. Spring is over, but not the Arab Spring. It is going fresher and stronger than ever. It's very exciting. In fact, it's catching on in Pakistan. A Pakistani army officer, about the equivalent of a one-star general, that guy, has just been detained because of his ties to Hizb ut-Tahrir. Hizb ut-Tahrir. Who doesn't love these cats? They're great. They're an extremist group that even the Muslim Brotherhood says, whoa, okay, these guys are... Hundreds of thousands of members in the Middle East of Hizb ut-Tahrir. Now, where have we heard that name before? You know, besides on this program, back when we were talking about it when they were setting the Middle East on fire. They just happen to want the destruction of the West and Israel, the United States, establish a caliphate. You know. They're the ones that we told you about. They have this annual Khalifa conference, which is my favorite of all of the Alifa conferences in the world. The Khalifa conference, which, I don't know, is Dutch or Hollandaise for caliphate, I think. I'm not really sure. They're coming up and they're calling for uprisings in the Muslim world. According to their site, quote, in the Muslim world, we work at all levels of society to bring the Muslims back to a living under Islamic way of life, under the shade of the Khalifa, caliphate. Oh, who doesn't want that? Beheadings for everybody. Last night, I showed you on this program a video that is being used to promote their upcoming global event. Look out, kids, here it comes. Looks good, doesn't it? Now I really want to see the movie. Oh, it's going to be great. A call to the entire world, 44 countries. And did you notice colonialism? It showed England, United States, and Israel. Hey, wait a minute. Colonialism? Isn't that what our president and all of his friends are always saying they're against? Nah, pay no attention to that. It's believed now that Hizb ut-Tahrir has even a deeper political and military connections than previously thought. I'm sure our CIA is all over this. Nothing to worry about here, kids. Move along. It's not like Pakistan has any nukes or anything, but don't worry about this group, because this group, it's not like they're having conferences in Great Britain and America and Australia. Well, no, I'm sorry, they are. But don't worry about them. Nothing to see here. Don't worry. It's the Arab Spring. The anti-Israel swell is not happening solely in the Middle East. It is happening all around the world and happening here in America. I'm going to show you some video here of Congressman Lynn Woolsey. She was at an event where she was standing with the angelic code pink. In attendance, you remember when Benjamin Netanyahu was giving his speech in front of Congress and somebody was screaming and yelling and interrupting his speech over and over again? Yeah. Well, look who was at this speech with the Congresswoman. Here she is. Watch. Watch.
You can repeat after us.
That's her.
Not $1, not one dime. Occupation is a crime. Not $1, not one dime. Occupation is a crime. Thank you.
Look who turned out for cheerleading tryouts and then lost and can't let it go. By the way, stop with the chanting like you're in high school. If you want my support for anything, don't ever try to get me to chant. Doesn't work. Here she is. She is talking proudly about how they got to stop the occupation in Israel. Right after her, standing behind during that chanting, was a United States Congresswoman applauding her disruption tactics, and, you know, then she also was there chanting you know, about the Israeli occupation. But here's the Congresswoman.
I have a little story about what happened to Ray during Netanyahu's speech. They were very rough with her when she stood up in the gallery and spoke out, which they didn't need to do. But one of my colleagues said to me, "Oh, I bet she was in your seat, Woolsey." And I said, no. Well, I bet she's your constituent. I said, well, I don't know who it was. Well, guess what? Thanks, Ray. You made me proud.
Oh, isn't that? Then on June 15th, a coalition of supporters got together here, right here in the United States, and they wanted to talk a little bit about how evil Israel and the United States is. You know, the imperialist. They had a little conference, and these aren't nobodies. There's a few faces you might recognize. First, Louis Farrakhan.
All of this fictitious dream of a few that rule the many, that they will continue their rule, their time is up. I'll say it again.
Say it again.
Loud and clear.
Say it.
Your time to rule is up, and your rule will end in war, and America's power will be broken in war.
Let me tell you something. Just between you and me, I think he means it. I think he means it. And I think he knows why he means it. He means it because he's connected with radicals, Islamists, communists, and socialists. Yeah, that's the crazy chalkboard there. Now, at the same conference, here comes Congresswoman Cynthia McKinney. She's wandering pretty darn close to crossing the treason line lately. You know, she went to Libya to talk about how great Libya is and how bad the evil America is. She's talking about bringing Libyan direct democracy, who doesn't want that, right here to the United States on Libyan TV. Watch.
On a previous visit to Libya,
وفي زيارتي السابقة
I was able to learn about the Green Book and the form of direct democracy. When I went back to the United States, I spoke with Senator Mike Gravel because he too
في 2008
is pushing a form of direct democracy for the United States.
My daughter, Cheyenne, has that princess dress-up costume. It is so cool. Anyway, she also called in by phone to participate in this conference with Louis Farrakhan. Here she is.
I would just like to say that the international...
Anyway, it was a high-tech conference. It really was. Then, sitting behind that cat is another guy. You see the bald head? His name is Brian Becker. Here he is being introduced. He's from International Answer. Watch.
I'd like to recognize Brian Becker from the Answer Coalition.
Yes.
Brian has organized a tour for Cynthia to speak in about 5 cities across America. So this is Brian Becker.
There it is. There it is. Okay, now, in case you don't remember him, here's one of Brian Becker's greatest hits. Watch.
We are not pacifists. And in fact, we recognize that violence sometimes not only is necessary, but necessary for the liberation of human beings.
And it's a good thing that we're the oppressors. He's going to liberate with violence. Got it? It's almost like this. Radicals, Islamists, communists, socialists work together against Israel, work together against capitalism, and to overturn stability. That's it. It's really not that hard, America. It ain't that hard. I mean, we could gather some more facts, but I've only got about 5 more shows left, and I think we pretty much have covered this, don't you? Now what? You're not going to get the truth from the media. You know why? The next Gaza flotilla is having the media ride right along with them. Now, you're never going to guess. Fox News? No, they're not going. No, they're not going. The New York Times is going to be aboard the Gaza flotilla, along with CNN and CBS. So it's going to be completely fair and balanced. No, it is. It's going to be great. They're going to be right there to capture how evil the Israelis really are. Balanced reporting. Same kind of reporting that said Iran only needed nuclear power for energy in the Middle East. Oh, and in totally unrelated news, well, not so much news. They're not really reporting it anywhere. I mean, that much. You might find it deep in your paper. Ahmadinejad has come out and said he doesn't have a problem producing nukes. Oh. And in the face of this, you have to stand up. You have to stand up and speak out. Let me tell you something. They are very well coordinated and they are very well funded. And they pretty much own the media. Pretty much. God help you if you want to stand up. But now is the time that you link arms. You can see the machine you're up against. Have no fear. You try to stand up and support Israel, and suddenly you're with the occupiers. You're with the war criminals. What did the Washington Post call me? Oh, yeah, that's right. On Friday, they called me a creature. Wow. I've seen some other people, you know, in the mid-1930s use that kind of language to dehumanize people. It always ends well. Right now, America needs people who are willing to stand up and lead, no matter what the blowback may be. We have only 5 shows after this, and I am picking very carefully what I do on these 5 shows. I want to introduce you to a man tonight that I think will make a difference. He already has made a difference. You may not know much about him. You may not like his style. You may not like his policies. In the end, I hope you at least walk away with the feeling that I have about him. He is an honest man. I don't pick or choose or back any presidential nominees. However, I do think that some of them need to be exposed. Herman Cain we exposed a couple of weeks ago. I thought he was worth your time listening to. I think this man is as well. Not many politicians have spine. This man does. He's proved as much to me. A few years ago, facing a tough election, he was ahead of the curve on the threat of radical Islam. We have talked about it between us for years. Radical Islam growing in Iran, the Middle East, and the increasing pressure being put on Israel. He knew it wasn't popular in the polls when he was running. The last thing he wanted to talk about was the Middle East. He told me at the time when I said, you know, you should back off of this because this isn't helping your re-election. He said he wouldn't be able to face his children if he didn't speak out, even if it meant he lost. He did, but he can sleep at night. Joining me now is former Senator and GOP presidential candidate Rick Santorum. Rick, how are you, sir?
Doing great, Gordon. Thank you.
Good to see you. You bet.
Appreciate the kind words.
It's not kind words. It's the truth. You have been on Israel and Iran for a very long time.
Have.
Will you agree with me that Israel is the key to the Middle East? If you pull it out, the West collapse.
Yeah, I mean, it's our anchor in the Middle East. It's a strategic ally for us. It's also essential for the Jewish people. I mean, we can't ignore the history of the Jewish people and understand the significance to the world of having a Jewish homeland. So it is a strategic ally for us. It is, as you mentioned, the stopper in the Middle East, but it's also a very important humanitarian place also.
I'm going over to Poland in a couple of weeks on something that's a venture that I'm doing, and I'm not going to do a special on Auschwitz per se. I'm visiting Auschwitz, but I'm talking about the town, which is just a few miles outside of the gate. And I have been doing my research and trying to figure out how did this happen. Poland, I didn't know this when I first started doing my research, Poland rose up, a lot of Poles rose up to try to help the Jews. But they had nothing left. They had no arms. The Jews couldn't defend themselves. They had no state. They had nothing. We're at least at this point, we have a Jewish state that can defend themselves, but the world says they shouldn't.
Well, I mean, the whole key to all of this is that the people that are opposing the Israeli state in the Middle East have never recognized the existence of the state of Israel. You cannot pull away from Israel. You have to stand by Israel until the people who seek to do them harm come to terms with the fact that Israel will exist and that the United States, hopefully the world, will stand behind them and their right to exist. As long as the Palestinian Authority, as long as the others in the Middle East refuse to accept Israel's right to be there, then there can be no peace. And we should not force Israel into any negotiation until that condition is met.
Do you think America has enough courage to turn the tide on Israel?
If we had a strong leader who had the respect of the world, Yes, the answer is because we've done it in the past. Leaders throughout the course of the time the State of Israel's been in place have stood strongly with them, and as a result, Israel has had a modicum of stability and success. We see now is a president who is backing away, who is, as you've talked about here, very much an internationalist, someone who sees his role as almost transcending the presidency.
Yeah.
And sees his role as to work with the international community to their ends, not to the ends of the national security interest of our country, not to the ends of supporting allies who are strategic for us, but to the ends of some greater goal than the goals here in the United States.
Okay, when we come back, I want to talk a little bit about, I don't know if, America, you've seen this yet. This is Time Magazine. Constitution. Does it still matter? Their conclusion, nah, not so much. And Rolling Stone and what they said about Michelle Bachmann. The role of God in your life, creation of jobs in America, what we're doing with the Fed.
With the unstable economy and
in the break, Senator Rick Santorum, a 2012 Republican presidential contender, we were talking about courage and whether people have the courage and looking to people of history to find it. Because it really, that's all it takes is to save our country, is somebody having the courage of their convictions.
Yeah, you just look at people throughout the history. I was remarking about one such man that I'm very familiar with, Joshua Lawrence Chamberlain, who fought at the Battle of Gettysburg and led the 20th Maine, who was at the end of the Union line, and on the second-day battle, fought the advance to flank the Union line, would have cut off the Union Army from Washington, maybe defeated the Union Army at that very moment, and fired until he had no ammunition, and then ordered a bayonet charge down the hill, sacrificing everything, and captured the Confederates in a brilliant move and won the day. And 25 years later, he came and gave a speech right at that ground, and he talked about how. And he asked his men to sort of close his eyes and think about, here we are in this deathless field, and that people will come, people we don't know, but they'll come to see what we did here. And that's the purpose of life, is to live forever in the minds of people, to have sacrificed and served so people who we know not of will come here to remember what we did and be inspired by that.
You are, there's a lot of this audience, I'd say the vast majority of this audience will say, wow. By you saying that in today's world, you are going to be mocked relentlessly for saying that there is something, that someone will come. They'll mock you for that.
No, but that's, you know, Ronald Reagan, when he left office, he gave his farewell address. And the last thing he said as President of the United States in his farewell address was his concern about Americans not appreciating what America is, not understanding who we are, not being proud of what America is. You know this, Glenn. I know you've talked about this, that the worst subject in our school systems is not math and science. They complain about math and science scores, but it's not math and science. It's history. Americans and young people aren't being taught history. I was in Council Bluffs, Iowa a couple of days ago, and I talked about that. And a college professor who happened to be there, who teaches at Washburn University.
Was he wearing a Che shirt?
No, he was a conservative, believe me.
Really?
Yeah, he was a conservative.
He was the one.
Well, the one. Now, here's the interesting thing. He said, you know, you're right. He said, in my history class, introductory history class at the school, I pass out a citizenship test to every student who comes into my class, and I have them take it. He said, you know what the percentage of right answers is? 40%. 15% pass rate. 5% of kids in college.
How does America survive like that?
You can't survive. You can't survive.
So
and we have leaders. We have leaders who don't focus on.
No, we have leaders that, quite honestly, Rick, we have leaders that don't even admit it. They don't even see it. I can't tell you how many people I talk to in Washington all the time, and they're like, okay. I start talking about this. I mean, what part of this do you think is nuts?
Nothing.
Okay, all right.
It's true. I mean,
they talk about this, and I start talking to them about people that are teaching in schools, or I talk to them about the revolutionaries that are organizing in our own country, and their eyes just glaze, and they're gone. They're gone.
Look, there is an organized effort to try to change what America is. I mean, look, I always say when you go back and read Barack Obama's speeches during the last campaign, Everybody focused on the hope and change. They didn't focus on the first 3 quarters of the speech, which was a condemnation, not of George Bush, but of what America is. And he wanted to change America.
Fundamentally transform.
Fundamental change in America. And guess what? He's doing it. And we have, I think, thank God, people like you and others, the Tea Party, who have recognized how foundationally he wants to change this country. It's not surprising to see Time magazine talk about the Constitution, say how insignificant. I'm surprised they didn't throw the Declaration in for good measure.
Okay, well, they dismissed that. Can I tell you something? It's not a surprise that Time is running this, seeing that Barack Obama and George Soros' good buddy Fareed Zakaria this last weekend did a piece on how outdated the Constitution is, and we should be more like Iceland, which is just, ready? Rewriting a new Constitution through Facebook.
No.
Why not?
Why have Madison? You're making that
when you
up.
have Facebook,
You're making that
swear
up.
to you.
Oh,
I swear to you. So now it's a coordinated effort, and here we have in, or it appears to be happenstance. Here we have in this article, I actually have it highlighted here. We have in this article a few things that I have to read to you. One of the last paragraphs in it. We can pat ourselves on the back of the last 223 years, but we cannot let the Constitution become an obstacle to the U.S.'s moving into the future.
It sounds like the Supreme Court. I mean, it really does. It sounds like what we've been seeing from our courts, which see the Constitution as this outdated document, and that we have to have this living, breathing Constitution. We have to have something that we can pull from international law, or something we can pull from, well, from our hearts that we know to be true.
What is the meaning of the Constitution?
I always say the Constitution is the owner's manual of America. That it sets up a government whose sole purpose, in my opinion, is to protect life and liberty. That's the purpose of the Constitution, is to make sure that you and everyone here in America
I don't know why you would
free.
say that our liberty is at stake, or our lives at stake. I don't know if you saw the TSA in completely unrelated news. TSA today, by the way, has selected the airport screeners. They're being organized by the AFL-CIO. That's going to be good, isn't it?
Yeah.
When we come back, I want to ask you just a little bit more about this.
Sure.
This is what they say that the framers didn't see these things coming. So how would you address that? Back in just a second. We are with Rick Santorum. He's a 2012 Republican presidential contender. And I want to get back to the Constitution because Time magazine asked, is it even relevant anymore? To Congress? No. No, it's not. To Washington? No. No. To America? Yes. I want to talk to you about, get back to the Constitution, but I want to just do a couple of things here, kind of short answers here.
You did this to me about 6 years ago. I just want you to know, on your radio show. I came on your radio show, and you said, now, I said, I'm going to ask you 30 questions, and I want yes or no answers. I said, I can't expand it. I said, no, I want yes or no. You mealy-mouthed politicians, you were just laying the lumber to me.
That's right.
And you went through it. One question, I gave a slight caveat, but I gave answers to all 30, and then you finished. I finished the answer, and there was this dramatic, it seemed like a minute pause, and then you finally said, I want to kiss you in the mouth. That's what you said.
I think I may have said on the mouth, not in the mouth.
No, I think you said in. I felt invaded. I just want you to know that. So I remind you.
Well, I mean, I am excited by politicians who will actually say what they're thinking and answer a yes or no question. Cantor and Kyle walked today from the Biden budget talks.
Good.
Serious talks or not?
Well, if Joe Biden's leading them, they're not serious talks.
Okay. Should we raise the debt ceiling or not?
Under circumstances where we get things like dramatically reducing the deficit and getting, I like the dollar for dollar. That makes a lot of sense to me. And as long as it's over a relatively short window, it's not a dollar debt ceiling raised over 20 years of budget savings, but a short window, I think that makes some sense.
I talked to Jim DeMint today, and what is this? It's the cut, cap, balance, and pledge.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah.
You know it?
I liked it, signed it.
You signed it?
Yeah. How about that?
I could kiss you in the mouth.
It's better. See? He said it, didn't he?
I was just kidding.
Oh, okay.
I don't want to kiss you in the mouth.
Thank you.
All right.
My wife will feel very good about that.
Afghanistan last night.
We have a president who had the obligation, in my opinion, to stand up before the American people and say, why are we doing this? What is our objective? How are we going to succeed in this? This is important to our country. Why is it important? What do we want to accomplish? And all he talked about is the politics of bringing people home.
Do you believe that he sees any reason for being over there?
I think the only reason he believes that he has to be there is because he made a commitment during the campaign that this was the serious war, so now he has to sort of follow through.
He went after he went against what the general said to do. Highly unusual.
Well, highly unusual for him because he has basically gone along. If you look at whether it's Gitmo or Iraq or Osama bin Laden, he basically followed what and the original surge in Afghanistan, he went along with his generals. But now it's the second half of his presidential term and his first term, and now we're focused on politics. This is a president. Look, I haven't been around that long. I don't know of a president who has started campaigning as early as he has started campaigning, and from the Ryan budget on, this is all purely political ever since the last election, and we're seeing the consequences.
What are we doing in Libya?
Well, I don't know. That's a great question. That's another opportunity for the president to step forward to tell the American people. I know there's a lot of debate about whether he should go to Congress and what Congress should do. The bottom line is he has an obligation to go to the American people and say, why are we doing this? What are we trying to accomplish? What is our mission? What are the definable goals? And he hasn't done any of that.
Okay, you're President Santorum tomorrow. Okay, this is my dream world. You're President Santorum tomorrow.
And so I have to live with all the mistakes that
you
have
have to live with everything. Do you stop what we're doing in Libya right now?
Well, it's a hard thing for me to say, but I would say it would be difficult right now to stop, given the relationships we have with NATO, given the commitments we've made to NATO. So the president has put us behind the 8 ball, in my opinion. He's put us in a situation that if we pulled out, we could very well threaten and destabilize NATO, which is already threatened to destabilize by the way. So, I mean, it's a complex situation.
I don't even want to kiss you on the hand on that one.
Okay,
we're out of Libya.
I think he's put us in a difficult situation. What I would say is I don't think we have an interest there. I think we should get out of there, but I don't think we can immediately pull the plug.
Have you noticed
I think we have
that all
to
of
figure
our
out a way
troops
out.
are surrounded now? Have you noticed that our troops are surrounded in Iraq? There are no friends around there, and it's getting worse and worse and worse. In Afghanistan, worse and worse and worse. Does that concern you at all?
It concerns me that we have not made the case to the American public why we need to win this war. It concerns me that that we are not making the case as to why we need to win Afghanistan, what we need to do to finish Iraq. Does it concern me that that we have relationships now in the Middle East that have, because of the Arab Spring, that have made our troops more isolated? Yes, it does.
Would you agree or disagree that America has caused a lot of our own problems? We're not responsible for, all the problems of the world, but we have caused a lot of problems ourselves by getting into bed, by believing the enemy of my enemy is my friend.
Well, if you're talking about, for example, the Egyptians, and why we buddied with the Egyptians. We buddied with the Egyptians because we were trying to provide a stability for our friend Israel, and that we broke a deal.
I understand that.
Right.
But did we not? We didn't stand for anything because we're in bed with brutal, ugly people.
Yeah, I gave a speech about a month and a half ago at the National Press Club and said that our foreign policy should be directed toward advancing the principles that America is founded upon, which is freedom. And so whatever relationship we have, whether it's with China or whether it's with Egypt or whatever, we should be advancing the principles of our country. Does that mean that we have to have relationships with people who aren't the best guys in the world? Sometimes, but we also need to be advancing our principles and holding our friends' feet to the fire.
Back in just a second. Gonna run out of time. Here we go. Rick. Try to give me one-sentence answers.
Gotcha.
One-sentence answers?
Sure, okay.
All right. You're President of the United States.
Yes.
Health care.
Repeal Obamacare.
What happens to Greece?
It's the problem of the European Union. It's not our problem.
Is Europe going to implode if Greece implodes? One sentence.
I think the Europeans will take care of their problem. They'll clean up their mess.
The left orchestrating worldwide and joining with Islamists and.
One sentence. I spent the last 4 years talking about the radical socialists, militant socialists in Central and South America working with the radical Islamists.
This is a run-on
That's a run-on clause. I put a comma in there, maybe a semicolon. So the answer is they do work together. The enemy of my enemy is my friend.
Oil.
Drill. Everywhere.
Coal?
Absolutely. Natural gas. We have huge stores, 263 years of oil at current rate, almost 200 years of gas, and almost 300 years of coal.
What about global warming?
There is no such thing as global warming. It is, in my opinion, you have hundreds of factors that cause the Earth to warm and cool, and a trace gas of which human participation in this trace gas
This could seal the deal for me. This could seal the deal for me. Whatever.
Yeah.
I got enough.
Okay,
I got enough.
My claws ran out.
Try this. The Fed. Be careful. You had me at hello. Be careful.
Thank you.
The Fed.
Well, we have to have the Federal Reserve has to be focused on one thing, and that is inflation. Period, and keeping our money sound.
You lost me. You lost me. Here's the answer. The Fed. Here. The Fed should have one goal. That's boxing up their crap and getting out. Okay.
Okay. Well, that was close. I was close to that.
You are close.
I was close to that.
Bailouts.
Against TARP, GM, everything.
What would you do with GM?
GM should have gone. I said at the time, should have structured bankruptcy.
What would you do now?
Well, I mean, get our money back and have them go out there and do it on their own. Look,
have you driven the Volt?
I've not.
Yeah, well, you don't know.
I've not.
You haven't driven a Volt lately. Well, you haven't driven a Volt.
Yeah.
Can government create jobs?
No, in fact, there's a report out just recently that for every government job created, we lose 2 jobs in the private sector.
It's almost like Spain with what they...
Almost
like Spain.
Like green jobs.
It's weird, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's weird. Okay, back in just a second with a quick discussion about an amazing story in Rolling Stone taking down Michelle Bachmann on God. You are one of those crazy religious zealots. We'll get to that next.
Thanks.
All right, we're back with presidential candidate Rick Santorum. There is an amazing article in Rolling Stone about Michelle Bachmann's holy war, where they call her crazy. I mean, it's horrible. It is horrible what they say, the smears that they say. And it's not just on her. It's on anybody that believes in God.
Yeah.
She says that, or in here they say, she thinks that God actually talks to her.
A lot of people think God talks. That's why we pray, because we talk to God, and that God communicates with us. Does that mean that we hear voices? Some people do. I don't, but some people do, and I believe that some people do, because I believe God exists, and if God wants to talk to us, He certainly can talk to us. And the idea that we condemn people for their faith, talk about the Constitution being dead, that the first freedom, the trunk of which all other branches of our freedoms come from, is the freedom of religion, the freedom of belief.
Nancy Pelosi said that that our freedoms are constantly expanding through Congress. Our rights are constantly expanding.
Well, if you believe that rights come from the government, then of course they can be expanding.
Where do they come from?
Well, they come from God, because our founding document, we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal and endowed by our Creator with certain inalienable rights.
They're editing that part out.
No, well, I'm sorry, the Creator part that comes out.
Try this. One document under siege. Here are a few things the framers did not know about. This is from Time magazine on the Constitution. They didn't know about World War II, DNA, sexting, airplanes, the atom, television, Medicare, miniskirts, the internal combustion engine, computers, or Lady Gaga.
They knew about truth and the nature of man.
What is the nature of man?
The nature of man is fallen, and that we cannot perfect man, but that we can trust man if given faith and freedom and the structure by which faith can continue to inform. As John Adams said, our Constitution is made for a moral and religious people. It is wholly inadequate for the governance of any others. And this idea that we have faith and freedom, and that faith informs a worldview that creates virtuous people who can, with self-restraint, allow for limited government. Because if we don't have self-restraint, molded by faith, then you're going to have external restraints on people, because people are fallen.
Any truth that the American people can't handle?
I don't think so. Look, we've survived freer than any other civilization in the history of man, because I believe that the secret sauce of our Constitution, of our founders, works. But it does take persistence and vigilance. It takes knowledge, it takes understanding of what makes us great, and it needs people to remind us what it is. And right now, we're going through a crisis. That's one of the ways we're being attacked.
Are we at a tipping point?
I don't think there's any. Look, I wouldn't be out here running for President of the United States if I didn't feel that this was the most important election, and I believe since 1860. In 1860, we were going to decide whether these United States would become the United States. In this election, we're going to decide whether that Declaration of Independence, where hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal and endowed by our Creator with rights, that those rights are still going to be rights that come to us from God, and that the government's role is to protect them, or whether the government is now going to say, no, we're the ones who are going to dispose rights. We're the ones who are going to be the sovereign. Remember, we left. Oh, I hear the music. I gotta go. Okay.
Rick Santorum, whether you vote for him or not, I thought you should meet him. Back in a minute. Tomorrow, history like you haven't heard before. The tipping points where freedom was almost lost, and how we arrived at where we are. There are only 5 shows remaining. Our last show is next Thursday. Make sure you join for every episode from New York. Good night, America.